gas in your lungs with every single breath, and you just didn't even want to breathe. It was just like, I don't want to breathe. Let me die, you know? And I thought to myself again, I'm like, really, God? I mean, I'm just going to go out very unceremonious, right? I'm not going to get any kind of medals or anything, you know? And I had a soldier in the truck with me that had asthma. And it was everything we could to try to keep him calm, try to get him to, you know, take short breaths, breathe. I didn't know what to do. There wasn't much we could do. But we survived that sandstorm. And when it cleared away, you know how people say, you know, the air smelled so sweet? I know that this is where it comes from, because when that sand cleared, it was like honey. Like I could taste it on my tongue. It was like, this air is sweet. I mean, it was sweet. And we stepped off the truck so happy to get out of the truck and breathe fresh air. And we just sank, like up to our knees. And then we just sank in the sand like quicksand. It was like, oh, great. Like, it was just one thing is another. And so we ripped ourselves out of the sand, got back in the trucks, and we pushed forward some more. It wasn't another 30 minutes up the road, and we came under attack. And Saddam's army was waiting for us, and they were behind sand dunes that were they lined the roads. They were everywhere. And so they were behind sand dunes, and there was a Marine convoy coming in the opposite direction. And they said, hey, we just saw this group of, looks like Iraqi soldiers jump out of a white truck, jump behind these sand dunes. We think they're probably going to ambush you, trying to give you a heads up. Do you want us to stay? What do you want us to do? You know? And our commander decided that we would just push through as fast as we could, like just pedal to the metal. All weapons pointed out, fire, and just we're going to push through. And at the time, that was the smartest thing. I think that was the policy. If we were in the situation, you're not supposed to try to engage, really. I mean, remember, we're logistics. We're not combat, you know? And people forget that when we started this war, there was no such thing, and there still isn't, as a front line. I mean, all units are combat units. There's no such thing as, oh, I'm in the rear and you're in the front, especially the logisticians. So that's exactly what we did. We pushed through, we fired, we took fire. There were a couple of injuries, but everyone survived. And there we go. We kept pushing. And I'm telling you, it was just one near-death experience after another, until we finally got to our camp. We were there about a week, and it started to have some sense of normality. And this was April of 2003. It was like beginning of April 2003. And I was in my tent one night, and one of the senior non-commissioned officers came into my tent, and he raped me. And there was no one. And I know people heard, you know, but it was kind of like when you went in that bunker and the eyes are just looking at you but don't move. It was that same sort of thing. And my best friend was out there with me. Her name is Marcy Hodge, and she said, Kelly, if you don't report this, I'm going to report it. And I'm going to give you 48 hours to think about what you got to do, what's going on, but if you don't say something, I'm going to say it. And so the next day I did report it. I went to the hospital that was out there. They did a test, we collected the evidence, and long story short, he ended up being reduced in rank and then discharged from the military with a dishonorable discharge. It did not go to trial because the way the Uniform Code of Military Justice is right now, it doesn't have to. I mean, it can be, and this is also the problem with military sexual trauma in the military, because a person who reports rape in the military, the commander can stop it right there and say, okay, nice story, moving on. or the commander can take it higher. And then even if it goes higher, there's a level where a lieutenant colonel can decide what the punishment is. It doesn't actually have to go to trial. So this being a war situation, there really wasn't even what we call CID, or Central Intelligence Division. Wasn't even located where we were, because we were in a very remote area. So that's what happened. And he did get punishment. You know, I can't say what he should have gotten, but I am happy that I did report it at that point.
And someone obviously took it seriously, which does not seem to.
It wasn't many people.
Someone,
Yes.
because it doesn't seem that is the rule from what we're hearing about reports of sexual assault in the military in all branches today. It seems like we hear more of it's ignored.
Yes,
when it's reported.
And this is systemic of the Uniform Code of Military Justice and the way it's carried out. This is what needs to have legislation. This needs to be, you know, it needs to be changed. And that court system and that system of punishment needs to be more like how it is as civilians. And I totally I understand why it was set up the way it is, you know, but right now it stands to protect the predator. Unless there's a one person, you know, who's more interested in seeing justice than interested in their career, or more interested in seeing the right thing done than he or she is in protecting the good, you know, background of the perpetrator, which is what happened in my case. You know, the lieutenant colonel that made this decision thought, well, he's a good soldier, quote unquote. That's what was. He is a good soldier. He has a good record. He maxes his PT test. You know, he scores highly on his like at the like NCOs take some tests. You know, he performs very well, and he was very likable. And most predators are. They come across as, you know, one way, and then they feel they can get away with it, and they have that ego that makes them think that it's okay to do whatever they want with whoever they want. And you know, I felt like maybe if he had a background that had more blemishes, they would have taken it more seriously, and maybe the punishment would have been more harsh. It just wasn't the case in this story.
Do you, I don't know if you'll feel comfortable answering this question or not, but do you think that I guess I would say permissive attitude that we've had towards sexual assault of women has to do with trying to protect the image of the military or the good old boy, or does it have to do with people thinking women don't belong in the military?
No,
or it's just rogue individuals that
I think
don't respect others.
I think, well, you kind of have to answer that in a couple of parts. One, women aren't reporting. And I think women aren't reporting because it is like getting raped all over again to report it. What happens is just like in just a regular society. Let's say you were in school, you're at University of Houston and someone gets raped. Well then, so-and-so is going to tell so-and-so, and then they're going to have their side of the story, and then the predator is going to have his side of the story, and he's going to tell so-and-so, and then everybody's talking, and then the ones that are on this side are in your face, and the ones that are on this side. That's just people. Then you couple that with a system that is protecting the predator. And so for me, it was, tell your story. Okay, tell it again. 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 Because we're waiting for you to change some part of your story. So tell it again and again and again. And then they threaten you. Well, we're going to test this and we're going to test that and we're going to give you a lie detector test. Do it. That's what I'm saying. Do it so we can get this over with. But they're you know, they make you want to give up. And it is not easy to get through it. you know that your reputation and your career is on the line just by reporting it. So that's the first part. It doesn't get reported because it's horrible to report it. And then secondly, once it is reported, once it is reported, and you're going through that whole trial, you know, when it's all said and done, it may never get to trial. It may not get to a jury of your peers or his peers. It may not get a jury of his peers. And you've gone through all of that only for one lieutenant colonel who was, you know, whose name came up on the list to say, this is what he gets. And so you're like, really? So I've gone through all of that, and now he walks away with, okay, you took a rank away from him, which he'll get back, because if you stay in the military long enough, you're going to make and lose rank all the time. Or worse, you know, nothing happens. And then you start questioning, okay, well, was it me? Did I say something? Did I do something? Could I have changed this? There were moments where I had to tell my story so many times that I started to wonder if I was telling the truth. I questioned my own. You know, I said, well, you know, they're interrogating me, and I'm like, well, I don't know. Was this a dream or was this real? Did this happen to me? Or, you know, you're almost like, well, I don't even know anymore. And you just so badly want to forget the whole thing and move on with your life that you're willing to just say, you know what? My bad. I was wrong. Can I just get my life back? And I think it takes a tremendous amount of support from your friends and your family to be able to get through it. And I was one of the lucky ones because I had that. My very best friend was out there with me. I communicated with my mom. You know, I wrote letters. I wrote to my congresswoman, and I had support. Had I not had that support, I think I may not be here. I think I may not be able to sit here and have this conversation with you today. And that's the truth. Yeah.
So how did that impact how other people, you know, worked with you on a daily basis there?
It was horrible. It was horrible. People didn't want to work with me, and I had to pretty much do my own investigating. Like, I had to get my own people to, you know, I had to try to find someone who could say they heard something, or, you know, and nobody wanted to get involved because the investigators they weren't even trying. And so people shunned me. They didn't want to talk to me. They didn't want to work with me. They just absolutely didn't want to get involved whatsoever. And I was taken out of my position, which I brought 300 soldiers to Iraq. I was their commander because I was their acting commander. Our actual commander had some other things going on. And so I trained these guys, I prepared these guys, I got these guys out there, and I felt that I was responsible for them. And when this happened, I was taken out of that role. And I was basically placed in a corner. And it was like, sit here and work with these people. And it wasn't even people in my unit. These were reservists that I'd never met before, that I did not know. And they gave me busy work, and they didn't want me to touch their stuff. They didn't want me to do anything at my grade level. And so I spent the rest of that time trying to make a friend, basically. Trying to make a friend. And it was really hard. It was really hard.
I can't imagine.
When I left, I got to